Welcome back to SQL Squared, the podcast that dives deep into the world of data and AI development. Each episode, we explore new technologies, discuss best practices, and bring you insights from industry experts to help you elevate your skills and projects. Today, I'm incredibly excited to have a true expert in cloud migrations with us, Elliot Leighton-Woodruff. Elliot is a principal architect and an Azure expert known for his prowess in successfully migrating complex client systems into Azure. Welcome, Elliot, to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Today, we're going to explore the critical aspects of Azure migrations, focusing on how to enhance the developer experience and ensure you're truly getting the most out of your migration processes. We'll also touch on the build versus buy dilemma with SaaS solutions and delve into the fascinating world of AI in cloud technology and business. So, Elliot, do you want to give a bit of an introduction to yourself and your experience and what you do for a living, basically?
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me. Okay, so my name's Elliot Leighton-Woodruff, principal architect at Sinextra, and for the last 15 years, I've had a typical journey. So I started in sort of lower level support and then engineering. So did whole rack data center fit outs, and then over time moved into sort of service side of things, and eventually ended up in consultancy for Office 365 back in the very early days. And then for the last 6, 7, maybe even 8 years, I've been Azure focused. So I've been involved earlier days in the infrastructure and sort of Entra side of Azure, but over the last 5 years at least, it's been heavily involved in transformation, sort of like application modernization. So rather than the sort of traditional lift and shift. These days, as principal architect, my primary focus is on helping customers understand what their digital needs are and how they can use Azure to fulfill them. But I build out internal products that will provide to our customers and lead design generally across the board. So coming up with new standards and ways of working. A big focus of mine, sort of alongside all this, is infrastructure as code. So strong believer that if it can be automated, it should. So generally we run on a 80-20 rule. So 80% of all infrastructure should be automated, and then 20% of it can be manually sort of finished at the end, I guess. Run a pretty good team at the moment in terms of consultancy. We've also got the managed service side of things that I'm heavily involved in as well. So yeah, it's a lot going on.
Yeah, sounds like a good career. Sounds like you've done a lot, all end to end, so from all the infrastructure side to the solution development.
Yeah. I think a lot of people the few people in the industry that know me knew me back when I was an Exchange SME. So back in the days where you could do one thing and claim to be very good at it, these days you have to be, again, 80-20. You have to be 80%, but of everything now. So
yeah, I've been. I need to chat to you some more after the podcast on kind of the Office 365 stuff. I've started doing a similar thing for my dad's business, kind of setting him up on kind of all the Microsoft 365 stack, and getting all his equipment in and all the employees and everything set up and the users, migrating things from their old kind of file shares over and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been trickier than I thought it was when I started doing it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's quite easy to spend a lot of money. It's quite easy to start a load of services, but yeah, pretty tricky to get it right, especially from a security point of view.
Yeah.
There was a point in my career where I was multi-cloud, so I was leveraging AWS quite a bit, and I was actually thinking about jumping ship entirely and becoming an AWS guy. But Microsoft's big selling point for me is generally the ecosystem. So they might not be the best in every sector, but add all those little bits up together, and it's a no-brainer in my eyes.
Yeah, the ecosystem is great. We had a small conversation in the previous podcast on kind of GCP, AWS, Azure, kind of which ones are better and for what purposes. And yeah, one of the things that came out of that was just how everything in Azure works together quite seamlessly. You can kind of build it all into one larger platform without the need for a lot of additional custom development on top of it all. So, yeah.
I find the people I work with are either sort of exec level or incredibly senior in technical, predominantly developers. So if I work with exec, they absolutely love the Microsoft way of doing things. If I work with a really senior developer, sort of lead developer at a software design company, they'll probably want AWS. It's highly technical, and actually it's a little bit cheaper in some cases, but
can be.
But again, it doesn't fit into the rest of it. So
no. Well, focusing on Azure. So one of the things we want to talk about, mentioned at the start, Azure migrations. You've mentioned that you're bringing people and businesses on a journey into the cloud, not just migrating what they've got, but actually re-architecting it and bringing them into a modern way of working. How do you make sure, I suppose, that those companies, those groups of people, get the largest return on investment from their efforts of putting their systems into Azure?
Yeah, it's a good question, and a question that we try to answer during any sort of initial engagement, or I try to answer during any initial engagement. Ultimately, I want to understand and this is what everyone should do as well. You need to understand why you're doing this. So are you doing it because the board said that being in the cloud would be good? Are you going to go through some PE deal and it's quite attractive, or is there a reason behind it? Now, normally those reasons are, I've got old kit and I want to move to a data center. I want to do it for some sort of PE deal. If we say we're in the cloud, we're worth £5 million more. It's not the case, but this is the problem. Or, I'm trying to get away from an MSP. They host my services, and again, I'm trying to get out of that. So once you've decided which of those things it is, that'll decide if it's going to be time, quality, or value that you're looking for. If you're looking for time, then lifting and shifting. I would always tell anyone to try and shy away from just moving VMs to Azure.
Yeah.
But if you need to very quickly lift and shift IaaS straight into Azure or something like AVS, so VMware service or server, I should say. If it's neither of those, if it's not time, and we're focusing on the value that you can get out of it, or the cost that we can sort of try and save in Azure, then being a little bit slower in that project phase is massively important. So what we do, or I'll do with the client, is discuss what solutions they've got. So there's a term of 5 Rs within Microsoft, and that is there's only 3 main ones. There's 2, which is basically retiring them. So what are we trying to achieve with those virtual machines? Can any of them be retired? So that's the first thing. Are any services in the business not really used by anyone, and they're a bit of a waste of time? If they can't, okay, well, can they be a SaaS product? If it can't be a SaaS product, can they be a PaaS product? And if it can't be a PaaS product, okay, they can be IaaS, but that's the way that we move through. We do that for a couple of reasons, but predominantly it's because if you look at someone's infrastructure estate, they've probably got a virtual machine sat there that runs IaaS and some web application on it. It's a lot of compute and a lot of overhead for just a small little application.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We try and get them to assess the services that we're putting into the cloud. If you take one virtual machine from your data center today, and you want it to be highly available in the cloud, you're going to have 2 VMs, you're going to have ASR, you're going to have 2 firewalls, and you add all this complexity on top of each other. And then if you switch that to, okay, well, now we're going to use web apps, or we're going to use containers, the availability that you have is just natively is far greater than the virtual machine. Counterintuitive to that, actually the cost is lower as well. So the big thing that we try and get right is, are we migrating to the right thing, and is the cost going to be the right thing as well? So it's not always going to be the cheapest. It might be that your project side of things increases the cost, but your resiliency and the return on investment will be a lot higher.
Yeah, the 5 Rs that you mentioned there, they're very key, kind of key indicators, I suppose, to make sure that you're getting the most out of your migration. There's I'll link it in the description. I think there is for anyone. Do you mind saying what the 5 Rs are? And I will link some training material in the description if people want to read more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one, which is pretty obvious, is rehost. So that would be taking your solution, putting it straight into the cloud. We'd have refactor, which is moving your infrastructure's IaaS platform into PaaS. So we'd start to leverage things like SQL PaaS database, or Maybe we use a bit of service bus in there, or ideally we'd be using web apps as well. And that would be the whole thing. Then you could have re-architecture as well. So it's similar kind of thing, but that's where we're looking at taking all of the components of the application and rebuilding it in a slightly different way. There's a tendency for people to look at these application migrations and split everything out into microservices. It's not needed in most cases. If you can get yourself to a point, especially with SQL, that's a really good example of it. You can get to SQL PaaS. The cost and HA benefits are massive, far greater than the normal sort of virtual machine side of things. Yeah. Even the licenses are far better.
Yeah, I mean, I've been through that. The current firm that we worked at, when we migrated from on-prem, we did just move to that kind of that IaaS VM solution where we brought the machines and the SQL servers and just put them onto kind of the same technologies within the cloud. And then later on, we moved to Azure managed instance, just make the management of that entire environment so much easier. But there are some downsides in functionality, I suppose. But for our use cases, it was great.
Yeah, we've had some people where there's a requirement for like SSRS. That tends to be a big one. Where so those that don't know, the reporting server side of SQL, that's not supported natively, so then you have to use a VM. There are a couple of elements that will prevent you from doing it, but SQL MI is probably the most compatible. It's also the most expensive, but we don't need to do that. No. So yeah, I forget which I'm up to now. I'll quickly go through them. So rehost, you lift and shift. Okay, we can do it, but really let's try and avoid it. Refactor, so repackaging the service. We're going to put it into some type of PaaS element on top of it or alongside it to sort of complement it. Re-architecture, so it's redesign, so we're rebuilding it from the ground up. Our application maybe was IIS, and now we're going to go into AKS, and we're going to have file storage accounts. Rebuild, completely brand new. So we had a service that ingested customer data and did some stuff, put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and that was our CRM. Okay, well now that CRM solution, maybe we could use Dynamics or something like that instead. And then replace, which is completely get rid of, use a SaaS product. That SaaS wherever possible should be the message.
SaaS first approach.
Yeah.
Are there any, I suppose, with that migration process, are there any common pitfalls that companies fall into? Like, I don't know, where they underutilize some of the Azure services that are on offer, or have kind of major increased costs or inflated costs, post migration.
Yeah, costs absolutely. It's quite easy to forget about some of the hidden costs if you use the Azure pricing calculator. So a couple of the ones that stand out to me are Microsoft Defender. So turning that on a subscription level can have quite a large impact.
Okay.
So Microsoft Defender, obviously endpoint protection, that's fine. I think it's $10 a server, something like that. But if you turn it on and you turn all products on, one of the big things that catches people out is the storage account malware scanning.
Okay.
So if you have a storage account of 4 terabytes, and I'm doing this from memory from the last time I did pricing, you'd be looking at something like £250 a month just in malware scanning. So you can see how that could scale up. I spoke to a client just the other day about their 297 terabyte data platform. So if we were to turn it on for that, they might get a bit of a shock. Generally, costs can come when it's misunderstood what you're putting in Azure. So when you run on-prem and you've got a comms cabinet in your head office, and you've maybe got some colo somewhere as well, and you replicate to it, you think that I've got these 2 instances and that's probably fine. The people seem to not understand the difference between Azure's LRS, ZRS, GRS. And so when you talk about high availability in Azure and talk about geo-region, cost obviously is double if you're going to have 2 instances running. So that seems to be something that catches people out. And then the last one is logging. I'm a firm believer that we need the right logs, but we need the logs. We shouldn't be just having everything turned off. If you were to take a AKS cluster As a client of mine from a couple of years ago did, and turn on all of the login. They spent 14 grand in a week.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's a lot.
Try and get the insights and the data that's required, that you're going to benefit from, but don't turn everything on.
Yeah, no, I've been through that. When we originally built our data platform and kind of a few of the applications that surrounded it, we didn't make use of, say, logging and application insights, for example. And we actually ran into a few issues, and then, after all those issues got solved, we were like, okay, maybe we should pay for this application insights and the logging, just to make sure that we can solve these things easier again in the future. But yeah, we did a lot of research at the time into what we actually needed, because we found out, through trial and error, that it could become quite expensive.
Yeah. I think we've got quite a few customers that have ABD. I've historically had a lot of customers that have ABD as well. And if you think, it's just client end compute, not that fussed about logs, but on something like that, if you capture the logs and we can see where memory leaks come from processes, it makes a huge difference to troubleshooting. It
really does.
Yeah, it's log analytics. You mentioned it, over login, but app insights. So like having the ability to see where the wait time is too high for a user's visit is hugely important,
especially to companies that run like e-commerce platforms and things like that. I can imagine that becomes invaluable, really. Talking about costs, we had and kind of bring it back to data platform. So we developed a data lake in Synapse Analytics, and we chose to go for the serverless compute because we were like, it'd be cheaper than going for the dedicated. But we totally underestimated like how much read and write operations we were doing as part of the platform loads, and then kind of restructuring it and normalizing it into the rest of our platform. And the costs went through the roof there, and we actually ended up going for dedicated pools in the end, to try and control that cost, because it was got way too high.
It's pretty rare that I will suggest any sort of pay-as-you-go consumption based.
Right. Okay.
It would typically be for dev services. Mm-hmm. So when I'm pricing out services for clients, I will always look at reserved instances where possible. So providing that we're going to use a product for at least 9 months, like with the dedicated pools, I'd be looking at vCore reserved instance for that, and whether that's a year or 3 years, it depends on the solution. But having an understanding of what the total cost of ownership is going to be over at least a 3-year period, I would say for most people, seems to be a big winner. And actually, it shows that when I'm doing sort of migration planning, or where we're in a sort of pre-sale cycle with a client, it shows a level of maturity that we're convinced of what the price is going to be over a period of time. It's quite easy, because again, I work with a lot of developers. It's quite easy for a development team to say, we think it's going to be this solution. We're not really sure. And that's a bit of a danger that you could have going into the cloud. You think you're going to build a £20,000 a month solution, and it could easily cost 60 to 80.
Yeah. Outside of the Azure pricing calculator, is there any additional tools that people can use?
Yeah, there was an AVD one. I'll have to check if it's still used in the lake. And over the time, as I've sort of accrued a little bit more knowledge of it, I've built like some custom Excel that I use with pricing. So I'll bring in the Azure pricing calculator, and then I'll load some of the values into there. And that's predominantly for things like backing up virtual machine disks. Log is a big one for me, because I don't think it's amazing in the pricing calculator. And then I've had some around Dev Center, which is managed DevOps agent pools.
Okay.
Because currently there's no pricing for that either.
Yeah, we've messed around with the DevOps agent pools, and we've just installed the agents on VMs, rather than having like a managed service for it.
Yeah, the Dev Center stuff is really good.
I'll need to look at that.
Yeah, supports Linux or Windows, but that'll spin up your agent. You can give it a lifetime, but it'll just spin up the agents as and when required, a bit just like a normal VMSS.
Yeah.
But there's no management required at all, and it's the Microsoft image and the Microsoft managed, just with VNet integration.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, it's a takeaway for me. Something I need to look into. One of the things, well, you mentioned it earlier, infrastructure as code. This is something I have a big lack of experience in, to be honest. Never really worked with systems that required to be deployed with infrastructure as code. So Terraform, I think, is something that a lot of people will have heard of, especially within the cloud space. Could you explain to the audience what Terraform is and kind of what it's used for?
Yeah, sure. So Terraform used to be an open source language. Sadly, not open source anymore, not strictly anyway.
Right.
So it's free for non-commercial use. So that means that you can use it. You can use it in your businesses, but you can't directly sell the use of it.
Okay.
It's a bit of a weird terminology, but that means that you can use it to deliver products to your clients. You can't repackage it and sell it as a product. So you couldn't have it sat behind a website where the user can type some stuff and go and do it.
Oh, right. Okay.
There is a fork of Terraform called OpenTofu, which is fully open licensed.
Okay.
But the advancements, that's their sort of community-driven one that carried on. The advancements that have come through Terraform aren't there in OpenTofu because it's fully community-driven.
Yeah.
So Terraform is HCL, so that's HashiCorp configuration language. Very easily human readable. It's quite an enjoyable piece of code to work with, and is all plain English, which is a big point.
Mm-hmm.
For those that, because maybe I've jumped the gun a little bit, for those that don't know, infrastructure as code is the concept of taking, funnily enough, code and deploying infrastructure with it. So it means that you end up with a set of or lines of code that can deploy resources into Azure. Or actually, the reason why a lot of people like Terraform is there's over 3,000 providers. Azure's one of those 3,000. So I think it's quite far over 3,000 now as well.
Yeah, it's very popular. A lot of businesses using it.
So it allows you to deploy the infrastructure and configure the infrastructure as well, which is one of the important things, but also manage state. So this is something that you don't really get with the other tools. So state means that Terraform is aware of what you last deployed and then references it against what has been deployed and checks what the delta is, and then will prompt you to say, this is the delta, these are the changes we're now proposing. Do you want to go ahead? And if you say, yeah, you go ahead. Now, where this is really good is where you do the same thing over and over again. So let's say at its most basic level, you deploy a key vault, and every time you want the key vault to look and feel the same, it wants private endpoint, it wants all these access policies and all this other stuff. Every single time you run it, it'll be the exact same, and you won't have clicked through it. So this removes all of the human error that could occur there.
Automation.
Yeah. When you go a little bit further than that, and you say, okay, well, now I'm going to package up work items. So let's say that you deploy landing zones, or let's say you're a software vendor. And I was talking to someone about this recently that was quite important to them. So they have 3 servers, and actually it is VMs, 3 servers, SQL environment, a bit of networking, and some application deployment. It was taking their team just shy of 3 weeks to get it rolled out each time for each customer.
Wow.
And they had a run book, so they knew what they were doing, but every time there's a slight little difference. Because obviously Bob might have done it one day, and then John did it the next day, and then someone else did it the day after. But with infrastructure as code, they moved into pipelines. Now they put in, I think it was 4 customer variables is what they ended up with. And they've run it, and that's it, and it's deployed. And I think it took their deployment down to an hour. So it's a big cost saving. Yeah. Now there's some, people are a bit skeptic of things like infrastructure as code because automates your job away, this, that, and the other. We get it all the time. But for those developers now, it means that instead of deploying infrastructure to Azure, the same thing every week for the rest of their careers, now they get to build out new services or improve the offering that they've got for their clients. Yeah. So they get their sort of the level up opportunity available to them. Now, if all they wanted to do was deploy the infrastructure, yeah, it's probably going to replace that job. But pretty much everyone that I speak to anyway, in tech, if you're in tech and you're doing this, you probably enjoy it and you probably want to progress your career. You're deploying a virtual machine today, and that's your only job. Probably a bit bored of it.
Yeah.
So
I'd
get rid of the boring
quick.
stuff. Yeah. Get rid of the boring stuff. Get onto the fun stuff.
Yeah. You want to save your time for creative and kind of innovative ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
The developer experience is quite an important part of migrations to the cloud, especially because I feel like it can be overlooked by some companies. Talk about what you just went over there. Migrating services to the cloud, providing software to other companies, and then having a process that takes 3 weeks for your development team to follow can really make their experience a lot worse. Is there, when you come to the migration process in general, is there anything that you try, or trying to think of the right words, any processes that you try and put in place to ensure that the developer experience is good?
Yeah. So again, depends on the teams that you're working with. Some organizations have no development teams, obviously, and it's just the head of IT that's kind of winging it.
Okay.
But for those teams that do have some development or heavy development teams, we work with a lot of financial, and they will always have development teams, obviously. It's quite important for us to get the buy-in, because at a personal level, if you come in and say, we're going to make a load of changes in infrastructure, we're going to make all these changes to pipelines, and we're going to do all this work to you. A developer's job is not to deploy infrastructure. A developer's job is to provide the best application code in the shortest amount of time. They care about shipping code. They don't care about anything else, and rightly so. That's their job. So what we don't do is come in and say, or I do come in and say, right, okay, well, I'm doing all this stuff, and you've just got to sort of fit into it and make it work. Because actually, what you find is that you can either have sort of a personal issue. You could maybe end up with people circumnavigating controls that have been put in place, or just doing their own thing.
I've done that a few times.
Yeah. If everyone knows what it's like, if you have a consultancy firm come in and they tell you all this stuff that you're getting done to you, you're probably going to rebel a bit, even if it sounds a little bit good.
Yeah, a little bit. Rebel a little bit. Yeah. Not too much.
So we tend to, especially in the development side of things, we tend to look at how are you developing currently, what's your application, and then again, at a personal level, career level, where do these individuals see that their skills are best, where are they lacking, and where do they want to improve them in the future? And then you turn a developer from, I'm deploying this .NET code to the same thing all the time, to, now I'm getting to work with advanced analytics in App Insights, and I'm getting to work with testing within Azure pipelines, and maybe I'm going to put Sneak in to see what's going on with our pipelines. Have we got any static code vulnerabilities that I didn't know about before? And then that just opens up a whole new world for them. And then to take that one step further, a lot of developers, especially in smaller organizations, are deploying all the stuff, then as in the infrastructure, then deploying all their code, and they're having to manage the whole thing. When you can provide them with the tools that they need to be able to do the first bit really well, so don't worry, development team, this stuff will just get deployed for you, and it'll all be perfect. You don't have to worry about it. Now you can focus on the 90% of your job, the important bit for you. The work that they'll deliver is far greater, and therefore the satisfaction is far greater. And if you can get them to buy into that, then you're sort of halfway there at that point anyway.
Yeah, and I suppose that's one of the beauties of consultancy, really, isn't it? Getting a consultancy in to take that, or take all of the unwanted stuff away from the developers, let's put it that way. Yeah,
definitely. Because we get this with data engineering as well, right?
Yeah.
All that, especially when I work with like proper, data scientists, they'll say to me, well, really, I don't really care what the thing is. I care about the data and what tools I have available to me to be able to use that. So if you just go, look at all this cool, shiny stuff you now get to play with, you don't have to do all that old stuff that you didn't want to do before.
Yeah. That's a really good answer. Really, really good answer. One of the things I wanted to shout out. You mentioned landing zones a couple of minutes ago. We met at the Northern Azure user group meetup, where it was close to a couple of months ago now, I think.
Yeah, probably more. Yeah, because they had a little summer break. So yeah. 4 months ago, maybe.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago. I wanted to just give a quick shout out to the Northern Azure user group. If anybody in the audience is in the Northwest, or more importantly around Manchester, then make sure to look them up on meetup.com and come visit me or Elliot, I suppose, one of the next times that we're there.
Yeah, it's a really good group. I've been going for years now. I've done a couple of talks. I can't remember how many I've done with these guys, but I think if you're in the sort of cloud world, not even just cloud, if you're just in the tech world, then getting involved in the local communities near you is good. It's not just this, it's something to do, it's an extension of work, none of that. It's a good networking opportunity. It's nice to go and speak to people that fully understand what you're talking about. I don't know about yourself, but I'll speak to some of my non-tech friends, and I'm not going to talk to them about work because they don't know, care, or understand. It's not, I'm not going to bore a friend of mine. My best friend runs a garage, right? I'm not going to talk to him about how our notebooks are used in data processing and ETL. It's not going to happen. So it's nice to see other enthusiastic people. Yeah. And let's face it, if you go to a meetup like that, you're going to be enthusiastic about tech.
Yeah.
You're not the one sat in a corner miserable about how you had to deploy Windows Server 2019 or something.
Hey everyone, just a quick interlude from me. I hope you're enjoying the podcast so far. If you are, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It greatly helps me reach a wider audience, and you get notified of episodes as soon as they are released. Also, if you're a data and AI professional with insights to share, please get in touch. I'd love to have you on the show. Head over to the SQL Squared website for more, and if you have any questions for me, I would be happy to answer. Leave a comment or email me on mailbag@sqlsquared.co.uk. Back to the show.
Okay, time for some fun questions. Hopefully you've got some weird and wacky answers. If you had a magic wand where you could instantly fix one pain point with all the cloud migrations and stuff that you've done, what would it be?
One thing. It's easy actually. It'd be bandwidth. I would have everyone have unlimited, 100, 500 gig bandwidth.
Instant copies.
Yeah, the amount of times that we've sort of entered into some migration effort or discussion around, it tends to be when someone's with another provider. So, a recent one was, I'm in Dropbox and I've got 300 terabytes. You think, okay, well, how are we getting this out of Dropbox? Because we're going to get limited by them.
Yeah.
And also just for clients, you're doing a cutover migration for some reason, because there's always some element that'll force you into cutover. Mm-hmm. 500 terabyte bandwidth. That solves most of the problems.
Something that everyone can relate to, I think.
Yeah.
Even outside of work, just downloading stuff. You want it to be instant, don't you?
We'll be there, I'm sure. Give it 10 years, but then we'll be saying that that's not fast enough anyway. So,
well, yeah, there'll be some new stuff that comes along where files are bigger for whatever reason, hold more information, just like it is now compared to 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So we're not running off floppy disks anymore, are we?
No, or that giant. There was a giant appliance that was like the size of a room that was 64 KB. So. Yeah. Now your phone's got a terabyte on it. Yeah,
I know. It's madness. As you mentioned that, my partner's dad is also a data architect, data engineer, and he started in the industry when they had to bring servers and computers into the building via crane through a window.
Yeah,
he always mentions that.
I think I caught the tail end of large data. So because I was doing so much data center work, there was a lot of, I was at the tail end of tape libraries being aggressively used. And that that wasn't just tape libraries for archive, that was tape libraries for just storage. So this is like a massive tape library room that you walk into, and it's all automated. It pulls tapes out and stuff. But that's the largest media, thankfully, I've had to use. Because I'm so youthful.
I'm sure you're not that old. So talking about past technology, onto future technology. Like, what are you personally most excited for over the next kind of 3 to 5 years?
Personally excited for
doesn't even have to be work related. It could be anything.
Outside of cloud stuff, I think cars probably.
Self-driving.
Self-driving. I think there's the fourth dimension side of things. So are we going to eventually not be on the road? That'd be pretty cool. And then augmented reality, definitely.
Oh well.
Because AR is pretty poor at the moment. I don't know if you've used the Apple.
No, I haven't. I'm assuming you have.
Yeah, it's not all that. No. I think when we get to a point where AR is like doesn't look weird on your face, and is nice and easy to use, that'd be really good. From a tech point of view, go on.
I was going to say, did you watch Google I/O?
Yeah.
Did you see that? Yeah. So the glasses and stuff they had on there, the kind of the new ones, they looked all right. I mean, they don't do a lot of stuff, but
getting a bit closer now.
Yeah.
I think for the tech to be lightweight enough and still be like worth using, it's going to be quite far away, because that's the trade-off at the moment. There was a company that made, I can't remember the name of them. They made really lightweight glasses that provided just a small, it's like inch by inch screen, which is good because it's lightweight, but the information that I'm going to get out of that is not good enough.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I think I saw like a video on LTT or something.
I think that might be where I saw it as well.
Yeah, but it was just kind of like a green text, like you were looking at a Fallout Pip-Boy on your wrist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think if we get to the point where that sort of personal screen side of things can become a real thing, that'd be good. You sit on a train or a plane, or maybe just having a break somewhere, and you just want to flick through YouTube. We're all going to get bad necks with holding our phones for the rest of our lives. So that'd be good. In terms of the tech space that I work in, I don't think you can have a podcast without talking about AI, can you? So
no, you can't. No.
I think the advancements in AI, especially in the science side of things, is the most interesting to me. I think when we can get to a point where, because we're limited massively by single humans at the moment, so if we can get to a point where we're able to start like really getting past diseases, because we haven't really done anything as a race. Smallpox was like the last thing that we got rid of properly. Everything else has just been keeping at bay. If we can start eradicating some of the illnesses and whatnot through AI, I think that'd be its biggest achievement.
Oh, I agree. Have you been on the Google DeepMind website recently?
No.
Recommend going on it, and because they've got a large kind of research section on there about the types of things that they're working on. I'm just looking at it now, and like some of them are just seem to be unreal. The types of things that they're planning on solving, kind of both in medicine and also kind of like in nature, on kind of predicting cyclones, for example, is one thing on here. But I agree. If I was to answer that question too, I'd give the same answer.
I was having a chat with a friend of mine the other night, and we were talking about AI and exponential growth. And we ended up in a position where we went, okay, well, if it's going to continue to exponentially grow in its capacity, there'll be a point where we don't understand the inputs that it requires and the outputs that it gives. I think that's quite interesting. So I don't think we'll be limited by tech. I think we'll be limited by us.
Well, there's a few. There's already been. I heard of read a couple of articles of audits that have been done on a lot of the large companies in America, for example, OpenAI or Meta or whatever. Actually talking to the engineers that work on these things, and what's the right word? Their report basically said that right now they don't understand how it actually works, like deep down, or how the AIs are coming to some of the conclusions that they're coming to. So we're already crossing that boundary really.
Yeah, I think the last test I saw said its IQ was 155.
Wow.
Einstein's was 160. So you give it, I don't know, 2-3 years, and it's going to be
Einstein Mark II.
yeah.
Outside of that, something I always like to find out is unpopular opinions. Do you have any unpopular opinions about the Azure platform? I know that we touched on AWS and Azure earlier, and the use cases for both. But yeah, on Azure, have you got any unpopular opinions?
I love Microsoft and everything they do. I'm big into the Azure space, obviously, but obviously there are some bad sides. So unpopular opinion, it's not the cloud. This term, the cloud, was probably a bad. I mean, it was a good marketing decision, but it was a bad thing for IT professionals. It's still just a data center. It's still just networking. You're just renting someone else's kit. And one of the downsides of this is that you don't have the insight into what's actually going on at hardware and network level. So you have to just assume that everything's fine. So I know of an incident that we were involved in with a potential MTU issue at a networking level. We had no capacity to be able to test that, and that's where you get to the limits of. It's good that you've gone to cloud services, you've got all these advancements and tech around you, but at a basic level, networking is still networking. No matter what you do, there's still a SAN, there's still a host, and there's still some switches. Yeah, it doesn't go down too well when you refer to it, but I think people are genuinely blinded by this cloud notion, and some, especially because we've seen it. You've got the younger generation now that are in tech that were, in quotes, born in the cloud. They don't necessarily have an understanding of what the thing is underneath it.
Yeah, it's almost like it's magic.
Yeah. And that can be quite dangerous because in 20, 30 years when the workforce shifts, I mean, will it be the same anyway?
When AI takes over.
Yeah. And the last one is the cost. If you think moving to the cloud is going to be cheaper, you're in for a surprise. If you can afford today to have 3 data centers full of kit that is all HA within each of those data centers, the cloud is cheaper. If you're running in a backroom office and you've got a single rack and maybe you've got another location somewhere, cloud's going to be more expensive.
Yeah, don't do it for cost saving purposes.
Do it for scale. That's what you want to be doing it for. That's the main reason. You've got a business that's got, I don't know, £10 million of revenue today, and you think you're going to scale and you're going to use technology. You're going to be a tech business, because basically any business these days, whether you're a lawyer or a construction firm or whatever it is, if you can turn that business into a tech-focused business, you'll 10x your business.
Yeah.
But you need to, if you're going to do cloud, you need to be all in on tech.
Yeah.
To make the most out of
it. The scaling functionalities of cloud are a massive benefit to on-prem. I mean, you'll know yourself, if you need to scale up on-prem solutions, you need to get another server and set it up, plug it in, get it all sorted, put it into your wider ecosystem of hardware. And if you're in the cloud, you click a couple of buttons.
I've got a client who started with 4 people in a business. And they were running, obviously I won't go into too much detail, but they run services for that they sell to the NHS. So they started with 4 people and can scale to 600 with no additional capex at all.
Wow.
So
on-prem?
No.
All in cloud?
No.
Cloud.
All in cloud, yeah. Cloud native, connect from anywhere, do whatever.
Yeah.
All secured, all the right way of doing things. But the difference is, obviously, they just know that for each person that gets onboarded and they're going to do additional work, this is the cost of that person. It's not the old days was we've run out of space, now I need 100 grand's worth of server. Thankfully, we're away from that.
Yeah, you plan your costs a lot better in the future. Well, that takes us good on to speak England. That leads on well to the discussion of build versus buy. Mentioned earlier, take a SaaS first approach when needed. But obviously, if you're then looking at kind of the IaaS process, then you're focusing on development. when we mentioned when it's better for a SaaS approach, but when is it actually better for an IaaS or a PaaS approach?
Okay, so from a SaaS point of view, I would, where you're not the subject matter expert, and so I'm thinking things like test services, so Sneak or Trivy or something like this, where you want to buy in a service from an external party. They're going to manage it, they develop it, they spend millions of pounds on development for it. That's where you should try and use a SaaS product. Now, that doesn't mean that it needs to be outside of Microsoft. You know, something like OneDrive, SharePoint, SaaS products, right?
Yeah.
Dynamics 365, SaaS. But that should, so this should be the list that we go through. So, is there a SaaS product that's available? Yeah, if there is, brilliant. Okay, is that provider large enough that they're not going to fail within the next 5 years? Because again, really important thing to consider. You don't want your business to be hung off the back of Derek, who runs this SaaS product from GitHub, and we need to be serious about what we're doing. And then when those questions start to come to a dead end of no, actually, it's too expensive, or we don't trust the company, or actually, and this is where most people go, we want more control. We want to be able to make some custom integrations that aren't possible through the SaaS service. There's always a limit. SaaS providers will, or the vendors are going to give a solution that is going to fit the largest scope of individuals or organization. So when you get to the point where you want, okay, we want complete control, you need to understand, well, if we've got the development experience, we've got the skills that are required. And if you're saying to me that you want to build an internal application and integrations that go along with it, do you have the skills, and is it across more than one person? And if it's not, then you shouldn't be doing it. So a lot of businesses will sort of corner themselves into lead developers, developed all these wonderful things over 15 years. But now if that person becomes ill or decides to leave the business is massively affected by it. So weighing up the risk between them.
Yeah, you've got to make sure to distribute your development operations 100%.
Yeah. Anyone that knows me knows that I absolutely love documentation. Not documentation for the sake of it, but what is the thing deployed? What's the technical components that we've deployed, and how do we update it? And you've worked with plenty of businesses that doesn't exist in most. So if you're going to take the risk and take the development in-house, build all that, and you've got this element of risk, document it all so that if you need, generally you should be able to say, if I can get a contractor and within 6 months they should be able to be up to speed, that's the yes mark. And if we can't do that, then you've got a problem. And then you want to move more towards that SaaS side of things.
That's a good measure of success, that. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had experiences in the past where we've brought in contractors and they've struggled to get up and running. And contractors aren't cheap. So when you're trying to get when you bring in someone in for a project and you're trying to get that project off the ground really quick, and then they don't have the resources to get all of the knowledge about the surrounding systems for them to work with, you can run into some problems. But no, that's really good. I mean, I've had stuff in the past, especially when comparing SaaS to custom builds. Being from the data engineering space, I've needed to integrate with many third-party systems, and one of the directions our CIO was wanting to take a while back was wanted to move to more low-code, no-code based integration processes as much as we can. And we were implementing changes to a new finance system. If you've heard of it, it's a SAP product. It's called SAP by Design, or Business by Design. It's one of their older ones. Definitely feels it. There's a lot of custom objects they've got in that system, custom processes. And when looking at these SaaS products for various, talking to various companies trying to get POCs for them to integrate, they all found it very, very hard because of custom namespaces in SOAP payloads, for example, being able to link and read from custom WSDL documents that were more complex than what you'd normally be used to. And we found that it was just so much easier well, not easier, but it was just better for us to implement it ourselves.
Yeah.
And take that approach of, okay, we've got to develop, got no choice but to develop. We need these skills to develop these platforms. And like you said, we need more people. We can't just rely on one person. We've got to distribute the development. And we've got to do it properly because, finance services are, it's important that it's right. And it's important that it's well maintained.
Yeah, I think a lot of people seem to misunderstand as well from a development point of view. If you develop something that adds value, so there is a real ROI, the benefits to your organization are that let's say you sell boxes, right? Your company sells boxes. I sell cardboard boxes, and so does company B. If I have internal IP, that means that I'm more efficient, or I can do a thing that company B can't do. My business is worth more. Mm-hmm. So there is intrinsic value in developing your own services. I do find that developers sometimes develop things for the sake of it, and that's where you have to be careful where that line is. So, like you just described there, you got to a decision point, and considering both options when actually we have to do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that case, it has to be done, and then that adds some internal value because without it, you wouldn't have been able to do X, Y, Z. But yeah, that IP bit is quite important. We personally deal with a lot of heavily regulated clients, and most of them are in the sort of PE M&A space where they'll be looking for a differentiator. So yes, you're very profitable. Yes, you don't have lots of debt. Yes, you've got loads of clients, but actually look at all this internal tech that you've developed, this well-maintained, well-documented tech that means that you can deliver 100x of one person versus the other company that doesn't use any of that. So a good example of that is a conveyancing client that I have, where they use AI and some internal applications to speed up the process of documentation review. So you'll have a conveyancing company that everything is done by hand. They sit in a little office and they read through. They probably even print it off before they read it, and then they go through every page. That person might read 2 or 3 documents in a day.
Yeah.
But then with the advancements in tech and the way that things are presented to clients, without giving too much away, we can end up with a firm that a single person can review 20 or 30 contracts in a day, massively increasing the value that business can offer.
That's a great example of, like, I suppose, how automation or AI processes, more modern stuff, can really leverage your position within a market.
Yeah, especially where you do the same thing. If there's any repetition, there should be some level of automation. Don't automate everything, because that's when it gets silly again.
Yeah.
It goes back to 80-20. Do 80% of it, and the 20% of it can be custom human interface stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you used AI Foundry recently?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got a couple of clients that use sort of like standalone virtual machines where they'll run Llama or something like that. Mm-hmm. And we're slowly moving everyone to AI Foundry instead, just because of gets into the ecosystem. We can leverage things like Purview on top of it. We can be a bit more selective with what data can be presented. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's the full package in terms of what we need anyway. Yeah. So that conveyancing client, for example, there's a special like covenant section in conveyancing documentation that says, mm-hmm, over the period of life of 999 years, you can't do X, Y, and Z. And they're all very specific to each property purchase. But it takes a long time to read. So instead, it gets number crunched, goes through batch processing, is analyzed, and then runs against a knowledge base that they've already provided. And that's all obviously vetted from a legal sense. And then this indicates to the paralegal or the legal representative of what it actually means. So they can read through those bullet points as opposed to 160 page document.
That saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time. Well, have you another thing on the Azure platform? I've noticed, for a while now, quite a few months, that Copilot has been heavily available within Azure, the Azure platform and the Azure portal itself. I haven't actually done anything with it yet. Have you found any use cases for it, or has it just been not very good?
You can see me smirking.
Yeah.
So Copilot agents are really good. This is all a precursor because I feel like I'm about to say something bad. So Copilot agents are really good. Copilot searching things like Bing, again, really good.
Yeah.
Copilot in the portal leaves a lot to be desired.
Okay.
You would think you would be able to say, I don't know, I've got this problem, or how do I peer this network to a hub, or so, just ask it some normal question. It won't do any of that. You can ask it to take you to a virtual machine. It'll take you to the page. If you say, I want to restart a VM, it'll take you to the page of the VM. It's not going to restart. It's not going to do anything. And it just doesn't understand any troubleshooting questions. It'll give you like the basics. So you'll say, you go to a virtual network page and say, I've got a problem with this network. It'll say, right, okay, here are the common things. It'll be like DNS, NSG, maybe the route tables, and it'll just give you links to other pages. So I think at this stage, because they've got the tech, they definitely have. I've seen it in agents. I think at this stage, it's been put in so that we all get used to the fact that Copilot's in Azure. And then as people adopt Copilot more generally, we'll see that the tech is increased. Because as an IT professional, do I really want to log into a production environment in Azure and have AI do a load of stuff for me? I probably don't. At least today, I don't trust that the AI is going to get it right.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So if we get used to always seeing it in the corner of your eye,
a
year from now, 2 years from now, we'll probably be using it even in production. There's a question as to why we're in the portal, because everything should be infrastructure as code. But
I'm always in the portal. I'm sorry. All my stuff is done through the portal. I mean, I don't have to create that much infrastructure, to be honest. It gets handed over to other teams. Yeah.
If you're not going to do the thing 3 times, don't do it in code.
Yeah. Well, I think we've already mentioned a lot of AI stuff and what you're excited for, and obviously just mentioned about Copilot. Are there any advancements on the horizon that you can see coming soon? Have you been in any conferences or any talks with stuff that's upcoming that you'd want to shout about on the podcast?
I mean, it's AI related again. I try to avoid talking about AI too much because I think everyone does it. But Copilot and agentic AI is that's the next huge win. So for someone like me, where I need developers to be able to go and do things for me, just work on a backlog of tasks that aren't the most serious of things. They're generally pretty normal tasks. Agentic AI is the process of AI completing something, then going back to itself, and then completing the next thing. So working off a task list to give you an end goal. So if I say, I don't know, we need a React application that can do X, Y, and Z, it will do everything from start to finish, and then you can put in some guidelines and some wait points for it to come back to you and ask questions. But getting that lower level sort of human clicking stuff done through agentic AI, that's the next big thing, and that's quite close as well. So I know that GPT are going to bring out their AI agent that you'll be able to buy, considering getting a couple of them, and then obviously Copilot agentic. So that'll be, you'll set up different agents for it, but you'll maybe have one that lives in finance, one that lives in HR, and you'll give them all different tasks and things that they complete for you. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that sort of stuff. I mean, I've been playing around a lot with the AI agents within development, like the amount of proof of concepts that I've just been able to spin up in a day. That would have taken me a week before. It's been so beneficial. I don't think I've started a project over the last 3 months without using the AI agents.
It totally changed the workflow. It doesn't make sense to. Like if you fundamentally understand what you're trying to do, then AI will solve it. And this is where a lot of people fall foul. If you've got no idea and you're just randomly asking the AI services to sort it out for you, it's going to make massive mistakes or do things in the wrong way.
Yeah.
I was making some Swift code for an iOS app,
Okay.
Don't ask why. It was a pet project kind of thing. And because I knew exactly what I wanted it to look like and what I wanted it to do, I think it took me less than a week and I was done.
Yeah.
Which, an app development lifecycle in a week from nothing is really good. That wouldn't have been possible. But equally, if you're sat in college right now, and you've built your first PC, and that's probably as far as you've gone from an IT point of view, you probably don't yet know what you want it to do. That's not to say people in college don't know what they're doing. There's people in college far brighter than I am.
I know what you mean, though. I recently built my own a personal website for myself. Yeah. I'll share it on the podcast, which, again, other than a couple of small tweaks, was fully built using AI. So this website here, I mean, it's quite simple, but it would have taken me a lot longer to do something like this, with all kind of the get in touch stuff and contact forms and whatnot, and the ability to download my resume and stuff like that.
This looks good.
But just what it's allowed me to do, especially with other parts of SQL Squared as well, using it to build scripts, for example, helping me come up with creative ideas for videos to talk about and stuff like that. It's been really good.
It makes sense. As long as you use it as a prompt or an aid, because I mean, you look on LinkedIn for like 5 minutes, and I reckon these days 70% of the posts are 100% AI with no human input whatsoever. It's quite easy to tell.
Yeah, I mean the 100% AI stuff does lose its soul a little bit. You
can teach it. Like, you can teach it your tone, how you talk, the things you want to talk about, and then it'll be a lot more authentic. But yeah, there's a lady on LinkedIn that I've followed for quite some time, Amelia Sordell, and she talks about being your authentic, unapologetic self, and that's quite hard to do with AI.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, for tech, websites, applications, stuff like that, no brainer, in my opinion.
Elliot, thank you so much for sharing your invaluable insights and expertise today. It's been a really enlightening discussion. So yeah, hopefully have you on the show again in future. And I'll see you sometime soon at one of the future Norg meetups.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you very much for having me, mate.
You're welcome. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into another episode of SQL Squared. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your colleagues even. You can find all the relevant links and handles in the show notes below to connect with us and Elliot on social media, and visit our website for more resources. Cheers, Elliot. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot, mate. Take care.
Bye-bye.